Hello, hello. Happy Friday. Sretan Petak. I am Sarah of Expat in Croatia, and this is 5 Question Friday. Every Friday at 5 o'clock Croatia time, answer 5 questions about Croatia from people who have sent them in on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, expatinCroatia.com, email our consulting sessions, and people who write them into a song. So, hello, hi, how are you? Welcome. We have 5 great questions today. How was your week? Mine was good. I don't remember any of it, except for today. This afternoon, the sun came out. It was hot. I went out for a coffee on Split's West Coast Riva, and it was gorgeous today. Who was out for a coffee today? Oh, it's just been rain and rain and rain and cold and overcast and rain. And so when that sun came out today, it just felt so nice. And all I wanted to do was just sit and bake in the sun. And so I'm glad I got a chance to do that today. So yeah, I'm going to do that some more tomorrow. I'm going to go for a walk with a friend in Turska Kula, which is a park here in Split. Enjoy more of the sunshine. You just got to take it where you can get it. You know what I mean? Oh, hey, Mariel, and welcome. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Oh, do I see Kathy in here too? Okay. So we've got some really interesting questions this week. I'm pretty excited about this. So this first one comes from AMA here on Instagram. Is Croatia really offering houses for 1 kuna in Legrad? Okay, so I saw some video going viral around Instagram this past week about this town of Legrad, which is up in the border of, I think, Hungary and Croatia, giving away houses for 1 kuna. And immediately alarm bells went off for me because, first of all, Croatia has not had the kuna for 2 years. So that's an important thing, that if anyone is using kuna, immediately have some skepticism about it, because Croatia got rid of the kuna at the end of 2022. So that's the first thing. And in fact, on that note, I saw an article in TechRound, which is a UK site, and they did a site on how you can open up a business in Croatia. They just published it 3 weeks ago, and they gave the amounts in kuna. And I was like, who's fact checking over there? Come on, guys. So yeah, if you ever see something in kuna, immediately alarm bells should go off. And if they're not doing the fact checking about the currency of the country, then I would be skeptical about what else they're telling you. Now, let me dig into this Legrad thing specifically. So this was a program that they had. This town was trying to get people to come to Legrad, like move there and invest in the housing so they could build up the city, because it is a small rural village, you know, and these villages are trying to do stuff to bring more residents there. Like Italy has had some similar programs where, like, oh, you can buy this house for like €1 or something. It's a similar concept. You come here, you renovate this property, you make this your residence, and that's why you get this cheap property for this, you know, in our town. Okay. So, what I want to communicate is that this was something that they had since 2018. However, and even into 2024, at the start of 2024, but they don't offer that same program now. So what they do offer now is they are still kind of auctioning off properties, like the municipalities auctioning off these properties for like much lower than market rates. So it may not be 1 kuna or the equivalent in euro, but you can still get some pretty good deals. So they have public bidding every month. And so every month on the municipality's website, they show a list of the properties that are municipality owned that they are offering up for a public bidding. So you can submit your bid on a particular property. So if you want to see what kind of properties that they have, then you need to follow the news page for Općina Legrad. Općina means municipality. And this is where they publish those public calls. We do have that link for you. So if you would like that, if you're on Instagram, send us a DM. If you are on YouTube, it's down below in the video description. Everybody else, drop us a comment. We will get it over to you. We have a question from Marcel. Hello, Miss Sarah. Please update about the 3-year work permit for third country nationals. They have delayed the changes to the law on foreigners, which included a lot of changes, one of which was a potential 3-year work permit. So that's been delayed till fall 2025. So it's not enforced yet. Thank you for the question. All right, so this next question comes from Mila here on Instagram. I would like to go to driving school. Is it possible to study in English or Italian in Croatia in some way? So if you are not fluent in Croatian and you are not a Croatian citizen, then you are required to hire a court interpreter to translate the lectures and exams for you. So it's important to understand that driving school is made up of about 75 hours of instruction. So usually court interpreters, they charge a flat rate per hour. So given the volume of number of hours, you probably want to negotiate with them to get like a lower rate per hour, because 75 hours is quite a lot. And court interpreters, in my experience, usually charge between 40 and 100 euros per hour, depending on the type of work that they are doing. So the reason I clarified about citizenship is because we also found out recently that if you're a Croatian citizen, but you don't speak Croatian, you're not allowed to have a court interpreter. What? I didn't understand that. And that is, if you're a Croatian diaspora and you are like a new Croatian citizen, and you want to take driving school here, but you're not fluent in the language, I mean, that's going to be problematic for you. So I thought that was interesting. Oh, thanks, Marcel. That's so kind of you. Thank you for your support. I'm so glad you're here. So we do have a guide to Croatian driving school, everything about it, the course instruction, what that kind of looks like, because the 75 hours is actually split into 3 different parts. So if you'd like to learn about that, we have a link, so just contact us and we'll get that over to you, or you can just go to expatinCroatia.com. The next question comes from Vera on the 5 Question Friday forum. I would like to work as a lifestyle coach in Croatia. In Germany, I can do so without explicitly needing any education for it, even though it is recommended. Is the same possible in Croatia? It is very hard to find information on that question as someone who doesn't speak the language. Well, we've got an answer for you. So thank you to our colleague Daniela, who helped do the research for this. She kind of not only scoured the government pages, but also she took a look at forums to see what other people in Croatia were doing who are doing kind of life coach work. So yes, you can work as a life coach in Croatia. While there are no mandatory legal requirements to practice life coaching, obtaining some kind of degree or certification is also recommended, just like it is in Germany, because it'll enhance your credibility. Now you must open a business though, because you are doing a business activity, so that you can charge your clients legally in Croatia. So when you open a business, whenever you open any kind of business, you have to choose a primary activity. And the primary activity, you have to go, there's a rule book, the NKD, that has the list of all the different activities in Croatia. And so for this one in particular, what we think is going to be the right activity, I'm going to say some Croatian stuff, and 2 of these are really big words. I was practicing, but we'll see how it goes, okay? So this is P85.59. Ostalo obrazovanje I poučavanje. That one's tough, which means other education and training. So basically, it just doesn't fall into anything else. Okay, but if you're going to open any kind of business, you should, especially one that doesn't quite fit into a certain category, it's best that you always consult with a lawyer and a tax advisor to be sure that you're doing everything right from the very beginning. Okay? So thank you so much for that question. I saw something come in. Hi, Eva. I have a quick question. Why do Croatian passports given through descent disqualify former Yugoslavia countries? Thanks in advance. Okay, I want to clarify that. I think I know what you're talking about, so I'm going to make an assumption here. So when you're applying for Croatian citizenship by descent, what it says in the law essentially is that descendants of Croatian immigrants can apply for citizenship by descent. And what they mean by immigrants is someone who is born on the territory of Croatia, modern territory of Croatia, and permanently moved abroad. That's what they mean, okay? However, there is a provision in the law that says that if your ancestor left the modern territory of Croatia and went to another country in the ex-Yugoslavia, then all of their descendants are can no longer qualify for citizenship. So it basically like cancels the right to citizenship. I don't know specifically, like there's nothing kind of written in stone as to what the explanation is for this, but I will speak to you from my experience. My experience of helping people with citizenship for the last decade, from working with like dozens of lawyers over the years, this is what I believe it is that if your ancestor left Croatia to go to another country in Yugoslavia or ex-Yugoslavia, it's kind of like they're abandoning Croatia. Like, if they're truly Croatian, why would they, if they're going to stay in the Balkans, why wouldn't they stay in Croatia? Like, usually if they left Croatia to go to Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro, then usually in those cases, it's because they identify as Bosnian, Serbian, Montenegrin, etc. They don't identify as Croatian. So that is how it's been explained to me. I feel like there's some logic to that. So that would be why. Now, that being said, there is another article, Article 16, which is member of the Croatian people. So this is a bit of a more difficult article to get citizenship under. And the reason is because it's discretionary. Whereas Article 11, it's like, as long as you meet all the criteria, you give them all the paperwork that they ask for, you know, most likely you are going to get citizenship, barring some kind of crazy complication. But with Article 16, you need to prove that you identify as a Croatian person, and you have to provide documentation that shows that. Usually people apply for Article 16 when they don't qualify for Article 11 due to some kind of technicality. This would be a technicality. If your ancestor left Croatia to go to another Balkan country and you don't qualify based on Article 11. So that is why. Thanks so much for the question, Eva. Okay, what did I do? Let me scroll back down. Let me see if I missed anything. Amira, thank you so much. It is a very difficult language, and the longer the word gets, the more trouble I have with it. But I would say the J's in particular, I really struggle with words that have J's in them, because it's not that the J is hard to say because it's just like a Y in English, but it's the place that it's put in a word is hard. And when it's like Janje, like those words were, that is also hard. So I think my personal, I have several struggles with the Croatian language, but one of my personal things that is just my mouth doesn't move that way with some words, the way that those sounds are combined. And one thing I thought was interesting, I was having a conversation with my Croatian teacher, and she was telling me why there was about an exception and why this exception existed. And she said, in this particular case, this exception has been made so that it's easier to say, except I could say it according to the grammatical rules. I had no issues with that, but Croatians find it hard. So whoever made that decision decided to make it easier for Croatians to say, but it's okay for me. But then there are these other things that are just impossible to come out of my mouth. And if you just take a bunch of Legos and you just throw them on the floor, that is how I visualize trying to say some of these long words with J's in them in my head. It's just bleh. There's no way for me to organize it properly. And I'm hoping that that's something that just gets better with practice, All right, let me scroll back to the bottom. Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Amira. You're so kind. I really appreciate that. Okay, this brings us to our lawyer tip of the week. Da, 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 da. Okay. When transferring property within the family, the 3% transfer tax can be avoided when transferring property in a direct line, like grandparents, parents, spouse, or children. For example, However, if you go sideways, like to a sibling, then you still must pay the 3% transfer tax. To avoid this tax when moving property to a sibling, Croatians typically transfer the property to their parent first, and then the parent will transfer it back down to the other child. So that's just kind of like a little Croatian maneuver that people do to avoid this 3% transfer tax. So if you don't know what I'm talking about in terms of the transfer tax, whenever you buy property in Croatia, you have to pay a one-time 3% transfer tax on the market value of the property. Okay, so usually it's whatever's in the purchase contract, but you know, sometimes historically Croatians have fudged the numbers a little bit to kind of avoid tax, reduce that amount of tax, but the tax office got wise to that, and so they'll look at the property contract and be like, okay, is this a reasonable price for this property? If it is, they'll just charge the transfer tax on that purchase price. But if they find it unreasonable, if they think it's actually much lower than it should be, they'll determine the market value and then they'll charge that transfer tax on the market value that they believe to be correct. So just to kind of recap it in simple terms, what Croatians will do to try to avoid that is, because you can avoid that if you are giving property in a straight line within your family, they'll just kind of like move it around within their family until they get to a straight line. Yeah, that's how they avoid it. So Croatians are really great at finding ways to avoid tax. So, all right. So this takes us to their fourth question. Oh, wait, did I miss a question up here? Okay, FRNA30. I applied for citizenship 2 years ago through the Chicago consulate. She told me the delay is because I had so many name changes. My first husband is deceased and I have remarried. Yes, name changes can definitely cause some delays because sometimes they need additional documentation. But name changes are a big deal. Like in Croatia, you can only have one name. Like they're very, very strict about that. You can only have one name across the board. But in other places, and the US is a really great example, you could have a different name on every document, different name on your birth certificate, on your driver's license, on your passport. And honestly, it makes Croatians' heads explode. So when you are, especially what kind of adds to it is if your name is, maybe your name is fine, but your ancestor's name changed, because that was really common when Croatians went to Anglo-Saxon countries, that their names evolved and there wasn't documentation to show that. And so that can also be a challenge. So if you do have name changes, whether it's yourself or your ancestor, or maybe your relatives connecting you to your Croatian ancestor, I always recommend that you speak with a lawyer, because they're going to guide you on how to handle that documentation and explanation within your application, because it's really not worth going through a denial by not asking first. Because in some cases, what I've seen is a lawyer will actually contact the ministry and like back channel with them and say, look, this is the situation we have. Can you kind of tell me off the books how you would handle this situation if we were to submit this application? So that way they can get all the documentation sorted out in the way the ministry wants it before you even submit an application. And that can save a lot of time and headache. Thank you so much for that comment. Okay. All right. Oops. Unlock phone. This comes from Mary here on Instagram. How long after we move do we have to update the change of address at MUP, and what is the process? So you must update any address changes with MUP within 15 days. And one kind of piece of advice I would make is in terms of how you do it. Okay. So that is always done at the administrative police station. Not any police station. It has to be the administrative police station. We do have a guide with the administrative police stations if you need it, if you're not sure where yours is. But if you are changing an address, you already know where it is because you would have submitted your initial address to them in the first place. So you go to wherever that admin station is in the jurisdiction where your new address is. That is where you go and change it, okay? Now, not every police station functions the same. The smaller police stations, you can usually just walk in. Bigger police stations usually require an appointment in advance. So there is an online appointment system called Redomat. So it's redomat.mup.com, I think it is. And that's not for all the police stations, but it's usually for the biggest ones, and you can make an appointment there. If it's not listed on that site, then that means that you can usually just walk into the police station, okay? But when you go, you need to bring proof of your identity. This is either your passport or your national ID card. If you are a non-EU citizen, you have to bring your residence permit and your passport. And then also your proof of residence. So this is proof of your new address. So this could be a notarized rental contract, a landlord statement, a certificate of ownership of the property that you're on, or a purchase contract, like when you just bought a place, which is what I did. When I bought this apartment, I took my purchase contract to MUP and was like, hey, I own this now, and changed my address. We do have a guide on how to change your address with MUP, so if you would like that, just contact us and we'll get it over to you. Okay, so this is our last question of the day. This is an anonymous question that came in through Instagram. Is there somewhere in Croatia to find out who your parents are if you were adopted over 30 years ago? We have never gotten this question before. Okay, so again, my colleague Daniela did the research on this. So according to the family law, the adopted person can request this information. So the place that they go, and I'm going to say some Croatian stuff now, is Hrvatski Zavod za socijalni rad, which is the Croatian Institute for Social Work. They're the ones who handle adoption in the first place. So they can go to this office and they can ask about their biological parents, and this information will be given to them. The institution can also allow an underage person to get this information if they determine it is in their best interest. So if a minor child wants to find out who their biological parents are, they can go there, request that, and then that social center will determine if it's in the best interest of the child. Okay, now the reverse would be if the biological family of the adopted person wants to get in touch with them. So they can use the exact same office, and then they will check with the adopted person to see if the adopted person wants to speak to their biological family. So they don't just give that information out, they give them the option, okay? So that's how it works. Now, the matičar, the matični ured, which is the registrar, they also have access to this information, but usually they won't give it to a person without confirmation from the social work office. Sometimes they will. It depends on who you talk to, but usually that's the procedure as it goes through the social work office, okay? So we have 2 links here for you. Actually, I guess I could have given a third link too. We have the link to Croatia's family law. We have the link to the social works page on adoption, but we also have a guide on adoption if you're interested in adopting a child, which there are Croatian kids all over the country that really need a good home. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that adoption is an easy process in Croatia. It's a bit of a system that really needs some work for sure, but adoption does happen if you want to adopt a child. We also have a guide on that. Oh, Anna Paz, you're a long-time viewer here. It's so nice to see you. Okay, that's it. I saw we had a comment up here. Let me take a look from Eva. In regards to the passport question you answered about descent, do you think that law could change in the future? Is the Croatian government pretty strict on that? Don't know if Croatian laws change. Croatian laws do change, but that one in particular, I don't see changing. Maybe so. Sometimes the Croatian government is really surprising, but Croatia is pretty strict on that one. I mean, something I've also seen, because you have people who qualify based on descent. Their relative did not go someplace else, but they have a last name that is indicative of another ethnicity or nationality. And there have been cases where they won't deny the application because there's not a legal basis for denying the application. They just won't make any decision. So it'll just go on for years and years and years and be shoved in a drawer somewhere, because if they make a decision that's not according to the law, then, there can be an administrative dispute about it and, you can take them to court. But if there's no decision, then there's nothing for you to file an administrative dispute for. So it's unfortunate that it's that way, but the reality of the situation. So I don't see it changing. But of course, these are things that we keep track of, and if it does change, we will of course tell you. From my own personal perspective, I think that there are some changes that should come to the Citizenship Act. It's a little imbalanced in some ways, and it's not quite fair in some ways. I think one example is residence for spouses. So if you are living with a Croatian here in Croatia and as your spouse, then you have to have temporary residence for 4 years. Then you can apply for permanent residence. And then once you get permanent residence, you can apply for citizenship. So that entire process probably takes 6 years. But if you are married to a person who is not a citizen, who has Croatian heritage, and you live abroad, you can apply for citizenship immediately. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That just feels unfair. So that's like kind of one of those little quirks of the citizenship law. So I don't know. We'll see. They last changed the Citizenship Act in 2020, and we have not heard of any changes coming down the pipe so far. But if that happens, Eva, we will certainly put it out there. Okay? Thank you for the question. Okay, let me see. Anything else? Jeff. Oh, hey, Jeff. Yes, it does seem like the wait time for citizenship has gotten longer. And there was a while we were making the recommendation that if you could apply from Croatia, then you should, because the wait time was shorter. But now I'm starting to see that it just seems like it's the same. It's the same regardless of whether you apply here or apply abroad. And it's all over the place. Like, we'll see some people that'll get it in 8 months. And then, I've got a friend who's now been waiting almost 3 years, and he applied from within Croatia. So it's really hard to estimate the wait times these days. I don't really understand why there's such a difference in how long people are waiting when everyone's applying based on descent for the most part. But it is what it is. I mean, it definitely, there's not enough staff at MUP. I know they're trying to hire more people, not just for citizenship, but also for residents, predominantly for residents because of all the work permits that they're generating. But I don't know. It seems like they're trying to make it better, but it's really hard to know what's going on behind the scenes. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. This is a lovely treat, as always. So I will see you next Friday for another episode. Cam will be doing it the Friday after that. So that's it. Thank you so much. Love you bunches. So have a wonderful weekend. Ugodan weekend. And see you next week. Vidimo se. Ciao, bok.